Scam is one of the best decks in Modern, but Lantern actually does pretty well against it, and in this match we're going to illustrate why. So we start off on the draw, and we have kind of a medium hand here. I like having Saga. We don't know it's against Scam though, so I think we have Thoughtseize and Stirrings, but with no pieces of our kind of key Lantern Shredder bridge game plan, only really Saga and Thoughtseize are kind of the cards I love. In this hand, if we start off turn 1, I don't know, Pithing Needle, hoping to name something blind, I don't think this hand is a keep. We want one that has a much clearer game plan. We open on this hand here, and it's much nicer. We have double bridge. Stirrings can hopefully find a second piece, and then Saga can get the missing Lantern or Shredder by the time we need it. And we're going to put back this Surgical here. It's good against graveyard matchups. It doesn't have a ton. It's very matchup dependent, so we're going to keep the cards that are kind of good against everything instead of the very specific matchup ones. They lead on a Swamp into Thoughtseize. Definitely a difficult hand for them to look at, kind of part of the reason to keep that double bridge and not putting one on the bottom. At this point, we're kind of looking, they could be Scam, or kind of the Coffers, Mono Black Coffers is kind of the other deck that they could be, and Saga is good against them, so we'll see kind of over the next couple turns what they do. We're lucky to grab an Inquisition off the top, which is going to help smooth out our early turns, branch our decision tree, and we see that they are on Scam, and you'll notice the new card here, Molten Collapse, which is an answer to either Lantern or Shredder. Importantly for us, it doesn't answer Bridge, and Scam has very few answers to Bridge main deck. In fact, almost none at all. It's going to be very hard for them to kill us with an Ensnaring Bridge out, so our game plan from this point will just resolve around keeping and protecting Bridge, which in this matchup is a lot easier than in other matchups. It's nice to see they don't have another Grief, or they can't scam a Grief next turn or something like that. They might have held it for turn 2, which would be weird, but I guess it could happen. So we don't have to worry about both our bridges going. Obviously we're going to take the Collapse here, leave them with Ragavan and Not Dead After All. We'll just pop out their cards here so we know what they are. Their hands kind of would be good in a generic matchup, but probably not great against what our draw is going to be like. So they're just going to start playing their lands here, and they run out of Dothy, which they drew off the top. Dothy isn't great. We don't have a ton of stuff going to the graveyard immediately right now, so it's not a huge threat, just a bit of damage. Drawing the Academy Ruins with the Dothy out is a bit too bad. We don't have much in our graveyard anyway at this point, so it's not a huge deal, but it's something that we'll look to fix later in the game. So they're going to draw and just start dashing Ragavan. Importantly, they are kind of hitting us for 5 a turn, so we're with the Ragavan, so we are down to a 4-turn clock, and it's going to be important to get cards out from Bridge quickly. Yeah, so they're going to go ahead and dash here. We do kind of want to make sure that there are some bad cards that Ragavan can hit. Just hit a Blooming Marsh here, but we can't hit Thoughtseize or things like that. Prismatic Ending from our deck that would deal with Bridge, so hopefully we can get Bridge in a reasonable spot before those come up. We draw Prismatic Ending here, which can be an eventual answer to Voidwalker. We'll need some white mana at some point, but we should be able to find it. Importantly, all of their creatures so far that we've seen, they'll have Bowmasters at some point, but for now they're more than one power, so we are able to hold Pending in hand, which could come up. We're going to run out of Bridge here. There's no point in making a 1/1 construct. It's better to just play Bridge, take a Ragavan hit, and play a second bridge next turn than it is to just chump with a 1/1. And then by next turn we will be able to shut off the Dothy from hitting us too. So they're going to keep dashing Ragavan, trying to get in for as much damage while we still have a couple cards in hand. For example, if we were on the clock, Scammed Fury here would not be able to attack us, which is quite important, getting under that. So if it was any of their Scammed Furies. We do draw white mana here, which is quite nice, but we are going to just take this opportunity to run out another bridge. When you're trying to empty your hand, you usually want to empty your expensive cards first so that you can get rid of the cheaper cards later. And we play the Concealed Courtyard just because it's going to enter untapped this turn, and it'll be tapped next turn if we play the Ruins. So we play the Bridge. We do want to hold the Pending for Dothy next turn, and we see their library. You might ask why we get Lantern over Shredder here. I think without blue mana, we want to get Lantern. It gives us kind of the tiniest bit of control if they draw something, if they would draw something extremely important. If we had blue mana, I definitely think you go Shredder, start milling yourselves to use Ruins aggressively, but in this case I'm going to go with the Lantern. So we see Bowmasters on top, not a problem. We'll have our hand completely empty by next turn, and they'll only be able to hit us for 2 with Ragavan. They get to take a Thoughtseize, which at this point would actually, we're kind of fine with. We're not using the graveyard much anyway, and Prismatic Ending in hand is not the end of the world if they take it, like with Thoughtseize. Importantly, Prismatic Ending, if you sacrifice Dothy to cast it, X will be 0, so it can't hit anything bigger than a Welding Jar or a Mishra's Bauble. This is one of the key advantages that I see to Prismatic Ending over something like Assassin's Trophy or Abrupt Decay, which some other people are on, and that's why I include Pending in my builds. So we take the hit from Ragavan. They actually elect not to cast the Thoughtseize here, just move to their end step. I think they were kind of wanting us to keep more cards in hand, which is a viable, it's a reasonable strategy to take when our only protection is getting Hellbent. And we see a Saga on top, which will hopefully it'll be able to get us a Shredder in a couple turns. I'm going to clear these cards here. Now, so we just run out the Pending on the Dothy, give us access to our graveyard again, but importantly getting us down to just 1 card in hand, so that Ragavan can't get through either. So they're going to run out of Ragavan. Bowmasters, when we're at 8, it's kind of not a big deal. The one damage is fine as long as they don't draw a Reflection of Kiki Jiki. Not going to kill us here. That is one out that they might have, is drawing Reflection and kind of able to ping us for 1 a turn. Fortunately, that's usually a slow enough clock that we can find a way to stop them. As in a lot of game states, Scam is trying to get to a top deck war, and we top deck pretty well when we're hiding behind 2 bridges already. We're going to exile the Ragavan here. It's not a big threat to us, but we just need 0 cards in hand because we know they have a Bowmasters and another one coming, so we don't want them getting in for any damage on the ground. So they run out of Bowmasters here, and they kind of need something pretty impactful in their next 1 or 2 draws. Fury isn't going to cut it, and yeah, unless their draw kind of under here is something really good, they're in trouble. So we Inquisition them here. Yeah, they're just going to run out the Bowmasters again. The one damage is fine, and as we look at their hand, it's just none of these cards matter. They can't interrupt the combo. So we take the Thoughtseize, but it's kind of an irrelevant what we take there. And we continue to draw. We see a Fable on top. Again, Fable is one of the cards we don't really want them to have, but we're going to be able to use Urza's Saga here to get a Codex Shredder. And yeah, we just make constructs. If they somehow get around something, find an answer to bridge, maybe they resolve a Blood Moon, the constructs are good blockers to have just in case. Yeah, and they concede here as they see that we're going to be able to get Codex Shredder and lock them out. So that's game 1 against Scam, kind of in the top deck battle when we're hiding behind bridge. Definitely taking a bit longer to assemble a lock, but it can still work against Scam. Alright, sideboarding for Scam. We like to bring in 3 Leyline of Sanctities. We leave the 4th in the board here, just kind of a personal preference of only bringing in 3. We elect to take 1 Needle out, a Stirrings, and Inquisition. Usually on the play, I like to keep in the Inquisition and I'll take out an additional Stirrings, but when we're on the draw here, I like Stirrings. It's a much better top deck than Inquisition late when we're digging for something. We take Haywire Might out, and it's a very good card that they can hit with Ragavan, and it doesn't have a ton of targets in their deck other than Blood Moon, but I think we're going to look to target Blood Moon mainly with Hand Hate and the lock. Additionally, Stone of Eric, I bring it in on the play when I can get it down on turn 1. Turn 2, when I'm on the draw, it doesn't shut down their scam starts, and they don't use the graveyard too much apart from the scamming, so I think it's just too slow to interact with them. As for the game here, we open up our starting hand, and it's not great. It has Thoughtseize, but they're going to have a chance to be on the play first, and Lantern, I don't think it does enough to keep it. We mulligan here and see a pretty playable hand. We got between Needle Bridge and Inquisition, we kind of have enough interaction. Obviously, against a Grief start, it isn't great, but Urza Saga is one of the best cards at catching up from them double griefing us on turn 1, so we're going to try it out. We're going to bin the Glimmer Void here, just the risk of them taking a Pithing Needle and then just never getting an artifact fast enough. I think just having that efficiency on the early turns is important. So they're going to run out a Monkey on turn 1, and we draw a Shredder here, which is nice. It'll give us kind of the full lock in 3 turns if we are able to protect it. And you'll see these games against Scam are actually quite grindy. So, you know, it may be called the Scam deck, but, you know, they actually do have a lot of play to them. And Lantern is definitely a very competitive matchup with Scam. I'd say we're likely favored across the games that me and several other people in the Discord have kind of played and recorded. We do have a winning record against Scam. Our game plan, I guess, is very different, but combats theirs well, mainly due to their lack of answers to Ensnaring Bridge. They hit a Leyline off the top. Fortunately, they can't cast it. Leyline of Sanctity is very good against us, so them casting it here if they had 4 mana would be pretty good. They are going to run out a Grief first, which is not great. Obviously, they're going to take Bridge here, which is kind of going to make it a bit harder for us. Hopefully, Urza Saga, again, it's a turn 2 Grief, so hopefully Saga can, you know, help us stabilize for a while. And they actually don't scam it here. They were just casting 1 Grief to clear the way, and they run out of Fable. I guess hoping that this value will be able to catch them back up on the later turns. So we're gonna run out a Inquisition, and we want to take the other Fable that they have in hand. Just the card velocity that it provides to them is not something that we want them to have access to, and the Bone Crusher Giant is not a huge threat for us. We can make constructs that can maybe get close, maybe not quite big enough as we'll see, but I think if we're hiding behind Bridge and kind of fulfilling our game plan, we're going to do better with them having Bone Crusher than Fable. So we run out a Needle on the Reflection here that we know they're going to get. Just best target here, only thing to name. And then as we pass through here, it's going to kind of come down to whether or not we can find a Bridge effectively. We are going to make constructs, try to kill the Regavan here just to prevent it from exiling too much from the top. Yes, they can kill the construct, but they're going to be able to create big blocker at any point. So we kill the Monkey. We just can't take another hit from it, and we don't want them drawing more problematic stuff from our deck. So they kill our construct, and we're going to take the Monkey. It's just a good top deck here, and we see Molten Collapse in hand. So Collapse with a fetch land is going to be able to kill a construct plus either a Pithing Needle or Lantern or Shredder. So it's definitely going to be much harder to win from here, but we're going to try. See, at this point it kind of comes down to whether or not we can draw Bridge. We get a Welding Jar just to hopefully save something at some point. And then we kind of have to block the Giant here. If they have a Scam effect, yes, it comes back and it's not great, but I think we kind of have to take that risk of trying to get it off the battlefield before they start copying it with Reflections. Unfortunately, they do have the Scam here, which kind of puts us in Bridge or Bust territory for the next couple turns. The reason we didn't use Welding Jar on it is because we have to save it for something else. It's kind of interesting that they didn't just kill the construct before they attacked, but I guess they wanted it to be up to 5 power. So here we do sack the Welding Jar, as them making copies of Bone Crusher will kill us very quickly. We draw another land, which is a bit unfortunate. We're kind of going to have to chump this Bone Crusher here. or sorry, we take the Bone Crusher as next turn we can make a bigger blocker to hopefully block it and trade instead of just chumping and then dying next turn. And they run out of Shieldred here. And yeah, we don't have an answer to Shieldred in this time. Not one that's going to keep us alive. We could get Cookbook, but they're just going to swing next turn and kill us, so we concede here. As we start game 3 here, we open a bit of a riskier hand with just one land, but I think this hand is great against Scam, and I think I keep this every time. We do only have one land, which means we're going to have to be very careful our first couple of turns. One thing I'd say when you only have one land is instead of playing Inquisition turn 1, I'm going to go Lantern turn 1, and then if I don't see a land on top, it's going to be Shredder turn 2, just because of how essential that land is. Between Leylines shutting off their scammed Grief starts, and Ensnaring Bridge on turn 3 is faster than a Scammed Fury too, so we kind of have answers to both of their unfair game plans, and then between the Lantern, Shredder, and Inquisition, we also have answers to them just kind of playing Bowmasters, Ragavan, Dothy, that kind of package. So I think this is a great hand. I would keep it every time. Hopefully we can get some more lands. So we're going to start with the Leyline on the board, obviously, and Blooming Marsh and running out a Lantern. We don't see a land on top, which is a bit unfortunate. Hopefully kind of one of the next 2 cards underneath it is a land, as we're going to run Shredder out in order to dig for a land here. So we see Fable, Bolt, again, not cards that are going to kill us, hopefully. And the good thing about Lantern is we can kind of plan around what they draw, as we'll know what it is. So they run out a Monkey here, which is definitely going to get in for a couple turns. We see an Urza Saga on top. Again, it's going to get taken by Monkey, so we don't want to have to gamble on the card underneath it being a land, as if we're stuck on one land the entire game, we're going to lose basically no matter what they do. So we run out the Shredder here, as that second land is what's most important in this game. As they move on to their turn, we do see a Grief on top. Again, that's fine. Leyline of Sanctity is going to keep us protected from that, as they really, some of the Mardu versions might have an answer to it, but so far from what we've seen, they're just straight Rakdos, so they're not going to have any answers to Leyline. They take the Saga here, and we see another Leyline on top, so we kind of have one of the next 3 cards needs to be a land for us to still be in this game. Obviously, if they drop a turn 2 Blood Moon on us here, we're in a lot of trouble, but it looks like they just run out the Fable that we knew about, so it's fine. We'll be able to see the extra cards they draw and respond to the top one, so it's only kind of a matter of whether the second card down is problematic for us. We mill the Leyline here, again mill the Welding Jar, and we're fortunate enough to get an Urza Saga, one of the best lands we could ask for here. We see an Ensnaring Bridge on top, but Ragavan's going to take care of it, so it would be beautiful if there was a land sitting right under that Ensnaring Bridge, kind of Monkey doing work for us. When Inquisition here, again, creatures. Fable does draw them an extra card, but Vortex is kind of the main one we need an answer to at some point. Obviously, we're not going to be taking 5 from it, but even just 1 a turn will eventually kill us, and stopping our life gain will make us not able to use Cookbook or something like that. So we run out the second Lantern here, just added security because we know they're going to be able to draw 2. You could run out Needle on Reflection, but I think we're going to look to do that on a future turn and play the second Lantern to have some security if the card under this Polluted Delta is important. Fortunately, it's just a Blood Crypt, so they can discard 2. Obviously getting rid of some of the cards that are less impactful here, like Grief, and they draw another Bone Crusher, was the card we saw. Not a big deal for us, but we're gonna mill this Vortex at some point. So they're gonna swing in here and take our Ensnaring Bridge. Obviously no incentive for them to cast it, not expecting them to do that at all off Ragavan. And we do see a basic Swamp here, which is actually quite nice. We'll get a basic, have a bit more protection against Blood Moon if they manage to get that through. And they run out of Fable. So we're just gonna slam bridge here with one card in hand, but then it's still gonna be close for a while. So we mill the Vortex, but they have a Grief on top. So we play bridge, and it's kind of gonna be hiding at this point. So we see a Blood Moon on top, and now this is kind of where the key playing Lantern instead of that Pithing Needle is quite smart here, as we're able to shuffle the Blood Moon, which would stop Saga. It doesn't totally kill us, but really not a card we want them to have. This Saga resolving on Chapter 3 is going to put us in a really good spot if we can get another Shredder. So having that second Needle here just allows us to shuffle, and sure, they can draw Bolt. Much better for us. And they draw Molten Collapse as their revealed card, which Saga can kind of find a replacement for whatever part they draw. Not great that they drew it, but so that's kind of the flexibility of Saga here, that we can go get something. And if they don't use it, we can always get a Welding Jar. So they're going to go after the Shredder here, which is fine. Because we have Needle in hand, we're going to be needling the Engineered Explosives. Again, make a construct here. Always a good practice to do behind bridge. Often it's never going to come up, but if they do manage to find a way to remove the bridge, at least we have some blockers to survive for a while. I've probably said that a dozen times in my videos, and I'll keep saying it. Just make some blockers when you can. Sure, gets bolted, but that's a bolt that's not coming at our face, so that's good. We grab the Shredder here and run out the Needle on Engineered Explosives, so we can let them draw that now. Importantly, this Saga is going up to 3, so not drawing anymore. We don't have to worry about that. And at this point, it's kind of a delicate practice of maintaining the lock. You may wonder why I didn't mill myself here, but I think the white mana is important enough between Prismatic Ending being a card that we want to be able to cast if we draw it. So I think it was important to get the white mana down before we start milling ourselves. At this point, we're going to continue kind of locking them. They make copies with Kiki Jiki here, not sure why. Again, Molten Collapse, we're gonna mill that for sure. Not a card we want them to have. Takanuma is not great, admittedly. We don't love them having Takanuma, but it's not the worst thing that they can draw. So I think because they have so much more, that actually just is very bad for us here. We're not gonna let them have that. Yeah, so we mill ourselves and draw Pending here. Again, that's why it's important to have that Concealed Courtyard down, so that we do have the white mana to cast it. And we're just going to remove one of the Kiki Jikis. A good target on the board can provide them with good value later, so we want to get rid of it. They go ahead and channel Takanuma here, and they end up picking up a Fury. But we see Hidetsugu consumes all on top, so we gotta get rid of that. And a Molten Collapse is a big problem, as if they can remove Engineered Explosives, they can then remove Bridge with it. Over the course of 2 turns, so we are going to shuffle to have them exile their graveyard, or sorry, not exile their graveyard, to flip their deck, so shuffle their deck. So again, this is Top Deck Wars, kind of what I was talking about, where we're in top deck mode against Lantern or against Scam, but we have a bridge out, so we slow them down rapidly. We slow them down quite a lot. We take Engineered Explosives here because despite having a Pithing Needle on it, if they draw a Molten Collapse, they're going to be able to take out the Pithing Needle and then use their Engineered Explosives. So we just don't want to have them having that option when none of the rest of the stuff in their hand matters. Yeah, so we're in top deck mode here. Kind of can we draw a Lantern or another Shredder to get back Lantern? I don't want to use Shredder to bring back Lantern, as it doesn't really provide any value here and will just benefit them if they're able to get fetch lands out. We're just going to keep running out cards to keep our hand empty. Again, we didn't really see anything. It was all creatures there that we saw. Sorry, I kind of skipped through it a bit quickly. Yeah, just keep making dudes for them. And try to start speeding this up here. They do run out an Engineered Explosives on 3. So it's important that this Pithing Needle survives. Yeah, so we draw Stirrings here, which is able to grab us a Shredder. With two Shredders now, by next turn we can use one Shredder to get back a Lantern and then play it the next turn, or if we draw a land in there, we can use that land and next turn get Shredder, sack it, get Lantern, and establish the lock once more. Also, we can mill ourselves twice as fast here in order to get back, get important pieces in the yard. You could make an argument that we have enough things in the graveyard to get back that we don't really have to mill ourselves and we can mill them. I think it changes things very little either way, so it's not doesn't make a huge difference. Either seems viable. So we cast a Stirrings here. It's pretty likely to either hit a Lantern or an untapped land. Just you'll notice most of our fast lands are out, and there's only one Glimmer Void in the graveyard. So in our 30 cards, we still have a bunch of Glimmer Voids and a bunch of Spires. So likely to hit another untapped land or a Lantern. Hitting an untapped land allows us to still use Shredder to get back Lantern. And like we were saying, lots of lands. We take a Glimmer Void here, and then we're on their end step, we will get back Lantern. They are a Thoughtseize deck, so we don't want to do it on our turn and have that Lantern get Thoughtseized for nothing. So, yeah, as we go through here, we're going to grab Lantern, and from here we basically lock it up. So, lay out Lantern, see a Blood Moon. Importantly, Blood Moon is much less important at this point. We have our Swamp and Forest already on the board with the Mill Rock, and they concede here, as I think, they probably had one Hidetsugu in their sideboard, a couple Engineered Explosives, then like Roiling Vortex and multiple Molten Collapse already gone. So we get the win against Scam. Kind of game 1 and 3 were both, we got into top deck mode behind Bridge, and we're able to get out of it first. We just have better hits than them and more cards in our deck that matters. And I think that's, when it comes down to it, that's really why Lantern is able to do so well against Scam. Kind of our game plan lines up very well against them, and when they're forcing the game into top deck mode, we're able to find just more impactful answers for what matters at the board state at that time. A top deck Fury might be good against a lot of decks in the format, but against us, they can top deck 100 Furies, and it's not going to change a thing in the game. So hopefully you liked some things in this video. Hopefully you learned about beating Scam, kind of what our game plan is there, how we sideboard for it, kind of what some matches look like against it, and you can implement it into your own leagues and your own FNMs as you continue playing Lantern.